Hi, welcome to my channel Mostly Knitting. I'm Tash, and if you're new here, this is a weekly podcast where I talk mostly about the knitting that I've been doing during the week, and I also put out regular tutorials on things that people may have asked me about or some kind of technique or skill that's come up in whatever project I've been working on. And if you're a returning viewer, thanks so much for coming back. Right, so this week I have a lot to talk about. I have 3 finished objects, one of which I'm wearing, so I'm going to jump straight into that. This finished object that I'm wearing is Pink Velvet by Andrea Mowry, and I knit it out of Wollmeise Twin in the colourway Feldmaus. I used a 3.5mm needle for the body and a 3mm needle for the ribbing. I did the cast on that was called for, which in Andrea's pattern is the long tail tubular cast on. There are a number of different kinds of tubular cast on methods, and I just used the one that Andrea recommended in the pattern. I did have some issues with the neckline feeling like it was a bit wide. I don't think that's the wide neckline is an issue so much. It's actually meant to be that way. I think that is meant to be the design because the yoke is quite a broad yoke. I think if the neckline was a lot higher, it would all be gathered and bunched, which I have attempted to do in previous episodes if you've watched. I've tried messing around with the neckline to bring it in and it just bunched up the yoke. So I'm just leaving it as it is with a fairly wide neckline, which is fine. I actually quite like the aesthetics of that. I think it looks really pretty. I just was a bit concerned that I don't like the back of my neck being cold. So really I just need to figure something else out there, like putting a scarf around or knitting a cowl out of the leftovers and having like a removable cowl. So I'll turn around and show you there's short rows in the back. So it's not crazy, like it's not like down here or anything, but there is a bit of skin there. I do have hair, right? So I can cover that over. So you'll see there's short rows to raise the back neckline. So that does, there is something to bring it up, but it's just a fairly wide crew neck. But, I think it's actually quite elegant. I really like how it looks, and I'm really pleased that I didn't chop the ribbing off and mess with it. And I'm pleased I actually ended up doing the cast on for the pattern. It is really good for me to know, though, that the long tail tubular cast on really doesn't have, it's pretty elastic. It's not very firm. So if you do it, expect it to stretch out a fair bit. Right, so did I talk about the contrast yarn is Qing Fibre Melted Suri in the colourway Pink Lemonade. So I had 2 skeins of the Wollmeise Feldmaus, and this is how much I have left, and that's about 60 grams. So, and the Wollmeise skeins are 150 gram skeins each. So I didn't actually weigh this, but it used just over half a skein of the melted suri and 60 grams. So I could actually make a little like removable cowl for cows are removable, but like a little cowl that I could put on over me if I went out and I just wanted to have something sort of tight around, like closer up around my neck if I was cold, because this is very warm actually. The melted suri is like an alpaca blend, and it's lovely, but it's very warm. So, and then the Wollmeise Twin is a sort of a heavy fingering weight, I'd say. Right, so I'll stand up and show you. I did the long tail tubular cast on. Actually, I'll show you and then I'll talk about it. Otherwise I'm sort of, turning around and not talking. So I'm wearing it with some fairly high-waisted jeans. So that's my navel right there. And, like you could, it's definitely long enough that I could tuck it into high-waisted, tuck it in a little to high-waisted jeans. Show you. Yep, and so the sleeves, you can see where they come. They actually grew, I'll come back and talk. So you don't have a headless Natasha talking to you. So the sleeves, when I cast them off, I did so that's on a 3mm needle, and I did a tubular bind off, and I used so I did 2 rows of double knitting and then a tubular bind off, and I used the tech knitter's technique to do that in in one, like where you join the first and the last stitch, which I think is really neat. So the sleeves were 15 inches long when I blocked it, and I was a bit nervous that was a bit short. That is actually kind of short for me, because I usually do, especially when it's a warm sweater, I do usually want like the sleeves to come all the way down. And so I really stretched it out a bit, the sleeves, when I was blocking it, and they stretched from 15 inches to 17 inches. And the body, I didn't really pull on it or anything. It just naturally stretched from about 11 inches to 12 inches, which is really good. I feel really happy with that. And I think it's really lovely. I love the color combination. It's very close to Andrea's design. I knit the 32-inch bust size, and my gauge was pretty much spot on, and when I put a tape measure across it, it's 32 inches. It's funny, it looks like it has ease, and yet it is, like when I lay a tape measure across, it's 16 inches across, so it's 32 inches. So that's actually just no ease at all. I did with the arms, I think I knit like maybe 75, I did put markers in, I knit about 75 rows before I started doing any decreases, and then I decreased every 7th row down to the cuff. So I went from 62 stitches up here down to 40, so 62 all the way down, and then I decreased down to 48, and then the cuff's on 48. And that feels natural, like there's enough stretch in that, it's fine. I can push them up and have them like it will sit up here, but it's not too tight, right? So that's what I don't want, is if I can't push it up at all because it's too tight, or if I push it up and it just falls straight back down. So that's a really good a good circumference for me. Was there anything else? I think that's it actually. Yeah, and so I will at some point, I'm not in a rush, but I will at some point. I'll sort of pick a yarn, I'll pick a pattern for this, but I probably won't. I'm not sure, like obviously I could do something that's with some colour work, but I feel that would fight. I think I'd rather just do something, either just like a plain stockinette tube. Wouldn't that be just nice knitting for me? Yeah, that might be all I need to do with the leftovers, to just have something that I can have in my bag to just chuck on afterwards. The other thing I could do is knit like a Sophie scarf out of it, but then I'd have these tails, like I just think this yoke is so pretty, I don't want anything distracting from the yoke. So if I just did a really plain stockinette sort of cowl, then it could sort of tuck in underneath here if I was cold. Yep, so that's Pink Velvet by Andrea Mowry, my first finished object. So I'm going to get changed for my second finished object. So my second finished object for the week is the Soho top by Caidree, and I knit it out of the recommended yarn, which is Purl Soho Sweetgrass in the colourway Rye Flower, and that's a cotton, let me see, what is that, cotton alpaca blend, 65% cotton, 35% alpaca. So I did one extra stitch for the straps because I just wanted it a tiny little bit wider. I think the straps are normally only 3 stitches and I used 4. I knit the whole thing flat. So I did, what you're meant to do is this bit flat, the back flat, and then you join and knit in the round, and you do like a decorative seam on the sides. Instead, and of course what that means, because it's garter stitch, you are knitting around, purling around. And I didn't really want to do that, I just wanted to knit flat. So what that means is I had a seam running down the side, so I just mattress stitched that, and you can see there's the seam just in there. So it's actually very flat. When you mattress stitch garter stitch, it creates where you take a low bump from one side and a high bump from the other, it creates a very small, quite flat, quite flush seam. It doesn't stick into you, which is really nice. And so I knit this, well, I'll show you, let me see, just so you can see, it's got these really lovely I-cord pickup around the neckline and the sleeves, and an I-cord edging on the bottom. So I did everything sort of all a little bit in different orders, just so that I could try it on as I went. So I knit the top, or the front to about here, and the back to about the same, and then I seamed it and did the neckline and seamed part of the sides so that I could do the armholes and then try it on to make sure I was fully happy with the length. I finished mattress seaming to the sides, and then I did the I-cord edge all in one, because I'd mattress stitched the sides so everything was joined, and then I did the I-cord edge around. The I-cord edging is meant to be 3.5mm needles on the neck and the bottom, which I did. On the sleeves, it was meant to be 3mm needles, but I was finding it like you're holding the yarn double the whole way through, and it's pretty, this is how much I have left, about 80 grams left. It's pretty dense knitting, and I ended up just doing the sleeve pickup a few less stitches. I picked up about 10% less stitches and did it on a 3.25mm needle. And I thought I'll wear just a regular bra so you can see, like whether you see the bra strap, you can just probably, like if I move around a lot during the day, you probably would see my bra strap, but I think it's pretty well covered, and you certainly can't see it here, which is probably the most important point for me, because I could wear obviously a strapless bra, but there's, yeah, I mean, look, I've been moving around a bit, you can't see my bra. Yeah, so, and this is a pretty good, like sort of summery kind of work top, because it's, you know, it's long enough. These are some pants that I wear, stand back a bit, these are some pants that I wear to work, so that with some, you know, some, I don't know, some flat or some sort of ankle boots or whatever. Yeah, I'm really happy with it. Is there anything else? So I knit the smaller size, I knit the 30-inch size, and I used the recommended needle, which was a 4mm needle for the body, and I got gauge. So my finished object is 30 inches, and from here down is 11, maybe 11.5 inches. And everything else I did pretty much the same. I think I picked up 2 extra stitches around the neckline. Oh, sorry, that's probably the only other thing I did. You're meant to have just done a provisional cast on and then pick up from that provisional cast on and knit down. I did want a little bit more stability here, so instead of doing that, I did do a provisional cast on for each one, and then I put them both on the needles, and I did a 3-needle bind off. I found that that just worked for me. It's only 4 stitches, but I just sort of look, you know, I may as well, rather than, you know, knitting straight from a provisional cast on down, instead if I have 2 provisional cast ons, put the stitches on live needles and do a 3-needle bind off. That does create a little bit more structure, because there is some kind of join with a bind off has a little bit more structure than just knitting straight down. So I'm hoping that will just stop it from like growing, or at least prevent it from growing. So I've blocked it, I've fully wet blocked it. So I haven't just steam blocked it, I've fully wet blocked it. It didn't grow a huge amount, I think probably because it's pretty dense fabric. And yeah, it's nice. The only thing I will say, there's a little bit of prickle factor. So I can feel it. I'm not super sensitive, but if you were, you might find this yarn, it's probably the alpaca, cotton's obviously not itchy, but alpaca sometimes has little guard hairs. Like I'm not uncomfortable, but I just notice it. I'm like, oh, there's like a little, just like a little scritchy or something, like on my, you know, on my tummy. Not all over, but just little bits. I'm like, oh, so that might be like a little, maybe they're not guard hairs, just generally like there's a little bit of a prickle factor. So yes, if you're especially sensitive, and I won't be making a scarf out of I won't make a Sophie scarf out of the leftovers. Oh, yeah, no, I don't think I'd want it like right around my neck. So maybe a hat might be all right. Like I think just at that part of my brim, like on my head would be fine. And 80 grams, I'm sure I'd be able to find a hat pattern, especially if I knit it, if I didn't knit it double-stranded. If I knit it single-stranded, that would be enough for a hat. Right, so that's my second finished object. My third finished object is the Sophie scarf. So I knit this one out of Madelinetosh Pashmina in the colourway Dustweaver, to show you, which is, I don't know if you can see, it's got these sort of browns and pinks, like lavenders, I guess you'd say. Yeah, it's really, really pretty. This is the leftovers from my Ingalls sweater, and I knit it, because this is a sport weight yarn and the pattern is written for a DK weight yarn. I knit it on a slightly smaller needle. I used a 3.25mm needle, and I knit the large size, but instead of going up to 33 stitches, I went up to 36. So let me look. Wingspan, it's not quite my wingspan. So I've got this one at my fingertip, and it's not quite, where's that gonna go? Yeah, it's not quite my wingspan, so it's probably about 50 inches. I'll measure it afterwards, and I haven't measured it since I blocked it, and put it down. And so I'll just show you, that's how I'd wear it. Just like that. yeah, I think that's really, it's just a really pretty little, just something to keep your neck warm. And like, obviously I could make that for something like that for pink velvet. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. Maybe that's, but would that really keep the back of my neck warm? It would keep the back of my neck warm. Whereas a cowl, if I knit that a little bit longer and sort of tucked it in, that would. Because even those, just when there's that little sliver of skin that's showing, I'm like, oh, there's something cool there, especially, you know, if I'm cold. So anyway, so the Sophie scarf, I haven't started another one, but I'm sure I will find, and I haven't actually weighed this, so or maybe I have. It doesn't matter. I'll put it down here. You don't need me to say it as to how much it weighs. Because I find that, for me, I find that really helpful to know, like, do I have, oh, I've got a, you know, half skein of Madelinetosh Pashmina. Is that going to be enough for a Sophie scarf that would look, you know, this length? That's a big thing for me. Like, I really do like to know before I go. And I also like to use up, if I'm using leftovers, use up most of it, or certainly not run out part way. The good thing, the beauty of this scarf is that you can just knit to halfway through your yarn. But if you knit to halfway through your yarn and you're like, this isn't going to be long enough, then what are you going to do, right? Yep, so that's my third finished object. Right, so I'm up to my works in progress now. I don't have any new works in progress. I'm really proud of myself for working down and getting 3 finished objects, so that's kind of where my energy's been going. But it does mean that I've only got 3 things on the needles now, and there's certainly going to be something cast on this week. Right, so I'm wearing one of my works in progress. This is the Field Sweater by Camilla, and I'm holding 2 yarns together. They're both Isager yarn. This is Highland in the colorway Rhubarb, and this is one of their silk mohair, I don't know what number, but it's all of it's on my project page, and there's a link to my Ravelry project page down below. So I did the longer ribbing, which is 18 rows of ribbing, and I knit the ribbing inside out, but other than that, that was the only difference. I did Judy's Magic cast on for the tubular cast on, and that's actually quite a quite a stable cast on. I would say it's pretty firm, not very elastic. I mean, it is elastic enough, right? I have no trouble getting this over my head, but you saw that, it just straight back in. Yep. Right, so other than like knitting the ribbing inside out, everything else is the same, right? Like I followed the pattern exactly. The size that I'm knitting is the smaller size, which is a 37 inch bust, but the gauge for the sweater is 20 stitches over 4 inches, and I'm getting 22 and a half, I'd say, because I just measured it, and from side to side is 16 and a half inches, so that will be 33 inches circumference, which is good for me. My bust circumference is 32, so that's 1 inch of positive ease, which I think will be nice. Now, I haven't blocked it, so it could grow a little bit, and even if it does, I'm all right with that. It's not going to shrink, and if it grows a little bit, I'm fine with it being a bit bigger. So this is where I'm up to. I've just, put it onto 2 needles so that I could try it on. And so I'm a fair way down the body. I'm not actually even sure what the pattern says in terms of how long to knit it. I don't even usually pay that much attention to that. I just knit it to wherever I want it to finish. So I guess I've still got a bit to go. I don't plan on having it cropped. I plan on it being a fairly, full size sweater, but not long, like not extra long, just sort of, maybe where would I say? Maybe here, just maybe about there. With the ribbing and everything. So yeah, definitely making good progress here. It's full straight stockinette now, and yeah, I'm obviously not sure I've still got the sleeves to do, but yeah, I pretty much don't have to look at the pattern now. I will take a look and see, well, how much ribbing am I supposed to have, and so I'm knitting this on 4mm needles here, and I'm pretty sure it was 3.5 millimeters for the ribbing, which is pretty standard, 2 needle sizes down. Was there anything else I was going to say about it? Yeah, I thought maybe because my gauge was a little bit different, I thought I might need to add a few extra, or I might need to add some raglan increases. I didn't do any other changes. I just, completely took off the stitches for the sleeves and knitting down. Yeah, and so I have put some tutorials up for the different sections for this, the grain stitch and collapsing them, and some of the different techniques. I used a crochet hook to collapse the large grain, which is 5, knitting 5 stitches together through the back loop, which with 2 strands of yarn. That's 10 strands, so I used a crochet hook for that, but I didn't need one for the I didn't need one for the small grains, which was only 3 stitches through the back loop. I just used a cable needle for that. I did, you know, like my tips definitely are, my tips for the sweater are to use sharp tips on your points, a smaller cable needle, like a significantly smaller cable needle than the 4mm, and I did little coding for the rows because the rows are all written out in words. If you like, I'll put a link actually here up to my first video, and in that video it has like sort of the first 9 rounds, but also I have like my main tips, like I think 5 main tips in terms of coding and sharp tips and cable needles and all that kind of stuff. Yes, so this is I'm going to take it off because it's pretty warm, and then I'll show you my 2 other works in progress, which, hang on, I'll get this off first. So you can see that came off no problem. Like, I'm not going to have any trouble getting that on and off. I do try to be a bit careful because I've got a bit of makeup on. If it's got a fairly tight neckline, I try to make sure I don't, you know, get any makeup on the sweater, although that colour is not going to be, you know, it's not white. My second work in progress is the Purl Soho Classic Ribbed Hat. I've actually made quite a bit of progress on that, and I'm using the recommended needle size, which is a 3.25mm needle, and I'm using Madelinetosh MCN Sport in the colourway Stovepipe. And that, even though it's a sport weight yarn and the pattern's written for a DK, this is a very heavy sport weight yarn. I actually think it knits closer to a DK, certainly for me, knits closer to a DK weight. So I think I'm knitting the second to largest size, which is cast on 120 stitches, which I think is the adult medium. I was actually really worried this was going to be too small. No, I was worried it was going to be too big, but obviously it's got a lot of stretch. And I did use Judy's Magic cast on, tubular cast on, and you can see that it has a lot of stretch, but it's definitely also got, you know, got the stability like with a field sweater. So a lot of stretch, but a lot of bounce back. I haven't blocked it yet. I'm getting to the point, I think I'm actually at 7 inches, which means I've probably only got about another inch. This is my first version of this pattern. I've not knit it before. I think I've always steered away from 1x1 ribbed anything probably, but 1x ribbed hats, because I'm like, that's a lot of knitting, a lot of ribbing anyway. And because I knit with the yarn in my right hand, I do like lever knitting, so I don't drop the yarn, but it's still a lot of moving back and forth. Obviously, every single stitch you're moving back and forth. So I will, there was a flaw in the yarn, hang on, and thankfully where it happened, I find sometimes like where there's actually just one ply, here, I'm gonna show it up there, one ply has been knotted together, and I could knit through that, but I just, I actually often find that shows. So I ended up just like, like a join there, and I sort of pulled out the loop, and then I'll cut that and actually I'll weave that in. And I think that's turned out long enough, like as in it's not gonna be where the fold up is, it should be fine. Anyway, I'm just gonna try it on. So it's got a fairly long fold up. This is for my husband, it's got a fairly long, so you can see where that is. I'll try and tuck that up in the hat. So I've put it onto a long, I'm knitting it on a 16 inch, 40 centimeter needle. But I've put it onto a long needle just so I could try it on. I mean, it's helpful for the podcast, but also like I wanted to try it on to work out how much there was to go. And my husband can then try it on and he can tell me like if that's, how much of a, so that's pretty snug actually. And you can see that that's really only just stretching enough to be comfortable. And I don't think there's a lot more to go. Like it's meant to have a fairly deep brim. I don't think that's too tight. And I haven't blocked it yet, so I could definitely block it out a little bit. I am hoping that won't be, and he's got a fairly small head, like, as in, like, he doesn't have like a large man size head. His head's about the same size as mine, which is about 21 3/4, 22 inches, which is, I think, pretty standard. So there's a bit to go, but not a lot. I'm probably pretty close to the decreases. I have noticed on people's project pages, or at least on the pattern, it's got a slightly, with the way the decreases are written, it's got a bit of a point. I'm pretty sure my husband doesn't want that. So I'll just do the decreases, like I either won't go as long, or I'll take a look at people's Ravelry projects. And with whatever I do when I report back, because this will definitely be finished next week, whatever I do, I'll report back and I'll write down really clearly what I did. It's a free pattern, so there's, you know, I can pretty much say exactly what I did, but I'll try some of the suggestions that other people have made on Ravelry to get rid of the little pointy bit. I don't actually mind that little pointy bit on a hat, but I know for my husband that's not going to be his thing. So yeah, so I have a whole skein here. This is leftovers from a sweater that I made for him. I have a whole skein and I have like another 10 or 15 grams. So I've definitely got plenty of yarn, but I'll be very clear. Like I just find I really love when I see people have done, especially small projects like hats or socks or things, when they tell me exactly how much yarn I used. Now I know I won't necessarily use exactly the same, like I might knit it a bit longer, a bit shorter, but it gives me a good guide. So I will report back as to how long it was when I started the decreases and exactly how much yarn I used. Right, so that's my second work in progress. And my third work in progress is just the skimmer socks, which I'm not in any rush to do. I only did a few rows on that this morning. So I'm almost at the point, I think I've just got a few more rows, and then I'm at the point where I leave the top on hold and knit the bottom. So I think what I normally do is I cast on 24 stitches using Judy's Magic Cast On, increase to 64, I get about 16 rows. This is the nice thing about repeat knits, like I do whatever I did last time. 16 rows, and then that's when I'll leave the stitches on hold and knit the bottom, but I'm not in a rush for that. So that's it. That's very exciting for me. Only 3 works in progress at the moment, which means there's almost certainly going to be something cast on very soon. Right, so my next segment is Friend from the Vault, and if you haven't watched my podcast before, this is a segment where I talk about some project that I made earlier, and often it's years ago. So this top that I'm wearing now is called Obsidian, and it's by Lisa Mutch, and I made it in 2012. I had a look at my notes for this sweater, and I made it in 2 weeks, which is pretty incredible. Now it is knit on a very large needle. It's knit on 6mm needles, and I used a yarn that was Madelinetosh Air Light in the colorway Ruby Slippers. This yarn is the yarn that I used in my contrast for the Ingalls sweater. So yeah, it's a really lovely soft yarn. The size that I made was the 32-inch bust size, but my gauge was a little bit tighter, and it turned out to be 30.5 inches. So I've got 1.5 inches of negative ease. It's a really interesting construction. So it's garter stitch as well. I actually intentionally wanted to show you this one because after the Soho top, which was knit in garter stitch, this was actually garter knit in the round. However, you don't purl. You actually do at the middle of the back, I'll show you in a minute, but you actually do like a wrap and then turn and go in reverse. So you actually don't knit it, you're not purling, it is knit stitch. So you start here with this incredibly stretchy cast on. What's the name of it? It's Jenny's Stretchy Slip Knit Cast On, and it's obviously incredibly stretchy. I said it was pretty easy to do after the first few stitches once you got sort of into the swing of it. And obviously the reason you need this to be this stretchy is that in the design, like you can see how, I'm going to just show you, this is how big the cowl neck is, like it's enormous, right? So you can actually pull it down and have like a completely different look. You've got this sort of, I don't know, I don't know what that's called, like a capelet sort of look. So you can wear it like a capelet, but you can also wear it like a big cowl neck, right? So I think it's a really ingenious design, and I'll just show you the back, because this is the thing that's really interesting. I don't know if you can see that there, but what you're, so it doesn't happen on the sides. So there's nothing, the sides are all normal, everything, and it's just runs down, I guess, the center spine. So I didn't do anything different here. This is exactly what the pattern says to do. The only thing that I did different was that the sleeves were meant to be knit the same way, but instead I knit the sleeves, oh, sorry, excuse me, just like, you're not really seeing my armpit because it's the sweater. I actually knit the sleeves flat and seamed them with mattress stitch. So that's mattress stitch. You know what, I'll put a picture up here. I'll put a picture up here rather than showing you my armpit, of the mattress stitch for the sleeves versus the switcheroony turn and come back. So you actually do knit the whole sweater, you don't purl it. Anyway, I think it's a really clever design. The yarn is super, super soft. There is absolutely, I'm just trying to quickly look. So it's Eyre Light, I'm pretty sure it's discontinued now, is 60% merino, 20% alpaca, 20% silk. So it's got a lovely kind of sheen to it. It's really beautiful and soft. And yeah, I just think it's really clever design, and I like that you can have it like in this kind of sort of cape, and particularly like if you're, you know, you're a bit cold around your shoulders, you can pull it down. So yeah, so this is my friend from the vault, Obsidian by Lisa Mutch. Right, I'll mention it weighs 272 grams, so it was about 2.5 skeins. Right, so I'm up to my purchases and plans. So for my purchases, my big purchase for the week was a new iPhone. So I do record all of this on my phone, and I was starting to have some trouble with the storage size. Now I do offload everything after I've finished recording, but these videos can get quite long, and then I have to upload them up to InShot. And what was happening sometimes, I find it boring for myself, so I don't want to go into it for you. I'm sure you probably don't find it very interesting unless you're a podcaster yourself. It is a bit boring. Anyway, I needed more storage, and the battery life, my old phone was 3 years old. So normally I wouldn't have upgraded, but with low storage, battery was dying, and the new iPhone, I guess the iPhone 15 has a better camera and like whatever, I don't know. I decided to upgrade. So yeah, so that was my big purchase for the week. Other than that, I don't think I made any other purchases. I didn't buy any patterns, although I am about to. So I'm going to jump into plans, and it's not a purchase yet, but I am going to buy the Oslo Hat. Now I've been talking about the Oslo sweater, but I think I'm going to make the Oslo Hat. So I just really like the look of it. It's more stockinette. I am enjoying knitting the Purl Soho ribbed hat, but I think like I just can't make another. I will make more of those for sure, but I'd like to have more like a stockinette one on the needles. I really like how it looks. Obviously, you know, petite knit patterns are very classic, so I've just got to figure out some yarn for it. So I've been spending a bit of time looking online in terms of, you know, this is what I do before I start something. You know, do I have yarn in stash where I'm not going to cut it too fine? Like I've probably got like maybe a skein and a bit. I've noticed that a lot of people talked about using maybe about 500 meters if they're holding the yarn double, or about 250 meters. So that's a bit more than 1 DK. You can either use a DK weight yarn, or you could use fingering held double. But either way, you're probably using a bit more than 1 skein if I knit it to pattern. And I don't want to run out, especially for the first one. I'd like to have plenty of yarn. Then I work out, oh, okay, this is how much I need. And then for the other ones, I can cut it a bit closer, especially if I've measured how much yarn the decreases take, because that's the right. If I knit 2 more rows, then I'm gonna, you know, I'm busted. I'm not gonna have enough for the decreases. So yeah, so that's my kind of, that's definitely going to come on the needles once I can figure out the yarn that I want to use for it. So I don't have, it's plans, and I'm going to purchase it, but I just don't have a yarn picked out for it. My other plans that I've talked about before, this one is for the cami number 4 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. So I showed in a previous week that I had knit a swatch. So this is it's a top that is in double rib. So that was my swatch on 3.25 millimeter needles. The pattern uses 3.5. This is knitting for Olive Pure Silk, and when I've used this yarn before, my gauge ended up bigger after blocking. So this one was a bit too big. This one I knit on 2.75 millimeter needles. I finally did a swatch, and I cast on exactly the same number of stitches and did the same number of rows. So I'm just going to show you those two together. and they've both been blocked. You can see that it's significantly narrower and significantly shorter. And this gauge is a little bit too tight. So for this one, I get 28 stitches. I can't remember what I got for this one, but it was a little bit too big, maybe 23. Anyway, either way, this one's a bit too tight, this one's a bit too loose. So I think I'm just gonna cast on with a 3mm needle, and I'm not gonna do another gauge swatch. I will just start with a 3mm needle, and then I'll just like adjust as I knit the pattern to make sure it's gonna fit okay. Anyway, so I'll just show you those two. Like, even you can tell, see how sort of stiffer that one is, like as I wiggle it around, versus this one. It's definitely, you know, I think that one's like quite clearly lighter. That one's a bit stiffer and denser. So somewhere in between the two, and obviously see-through factor. That one's got almost no see-through factor. That one a little bit, yeah. So I reckon split the difference, 3mm needle, Bob's your uncle. So that's my, I'm not sure if I'm gonna cast it on this week, but I feel pretty confident. I might, now that I've picked the needle size, I've already bought the pattern, I might start that one. And apparently it's a pretty quick knit, unless you turn it into a dress. But if I just make it a top, that is a pretty quick knit. So that's one potential work in progress. Another one is the Kutar top by Sari Nordland, and I'm going to use this Sanders Garn Tin Lena in this really pretty colorway. I did a swatch in a different color, I'm not sure why, but my gauge is a bit tight on this one, and yet I quite like that. So the only question that I have with that is whether I trust that little swatch. So if I cast on, but I'm pretty sure when I was looking at the pattern, because I have bought this pattern, the first few sizes have a pretty much the same size, like the cast on for the first few sizes is the same, so it's not going to really matter whether I make the 1 or the 2 or the 3. So yes, so I'm ready now that I've got all my tops off the needles. The only sweater that I have, or the only garment I have on the needles, is the field sweater. I feel ready to cast on. Now I'm not going to cast all of these on, I have to pick. I'll just pick one light one. So I'll either cast this one on, or I'll cast the cami number 4 or the Kutar top, one of those. The other sort of heavier top that I would cast on is a repeat knit of the Anchor Summer shirt, and I'm going to use this Habu Bamboo, which I absolutely love. Even though I'm a real fan of the repeat knit, I don't usually like to do another one straight away. So this one, I might not do this one, you know, super quick. Like, it's boring, right? Like, you want to, whereas if I do it in like maybe, you know, another month or so, yeah, I might be a bit more like maybe when I get back from Japan, because we're going to Japan in 2 weeks. So like, this probably wouldn't be started and finished before then anyway. So yeah, this might be like a when I get back project. So I've knit 2 swatches on that. That one's on a 4, can't remember which is which. That's a 4mm needle, that's a 3.5. I probably like the 3.5. It's still pretty drapey, and it's still bigger than the pattern gauge, so it's going to turn out a little bit big, but that's what I'd like. I'd like it a sort of a nice loose flowy one. I think that's it for my summer tops. Oh, I mean, I guess Alpine Bloom, it's not cotton, this is a wool top, but I'm going to knit Alpine Bloom out of this Madelinetosh Tosh Merino Light in Nocturne and I'm pretty sure Peach Bellini. I haven't done a swatch yet on that, but I'm definitely going to do a swatch on those two together to make sure I like how that, because there's quite a lot of variegation in that, and I just want to make sure that I like how that's knitting up. Now, sometimes variegation can be a problem in colour work if some of these colours are similar in value to these colours, but obviously that's not the case at all. So it's just whether the design shines with this yarn with all the variegation. So I'm not sure, so I'm definitely going to do a gauge, not a gauge swatch, I know my gauge on this yarn, but a colour work swatch to make sure I'm happy with the, how that looks. Probably with like the flowery design, because that's the main thing that I want to make sure looks nice. So that's kind of it for tops. Oh no, it's not. One more, the Sailor Swift top. This is also another small top that shouldn't take too long or use a lot of yarn. The Sailor Swift top, and I'm going to use that Rowan Cotton Glacé in, and that Sailor Swift top is by Veronica Lindberg, who's Kutuvakika. So yes, so I haven't haven't picked, we'll see. I'm pretty sure I'll start one of these this week, although like I was pretty sure I was going to cast on something last week and I didn't. So the other things that are potential, and I'm pretty sure I'll cast on one of these, if not both. The half and half wrap using Purl Soho linen quill in baby bird blue and red poppy. So definitely going to do that soon because I like the yarn, it's all ready to go, it's caked up. That will be my like stay at home project. I'm not in a big rush for that. The one that I'm actually probably more likely to cast on is Dotted Rays. So this is, I have to look it up. It's a fingering weight 4-ply yarn. It's very similar to, it's Dingo Dyeworks Jumbuck. It's very similar to Tosh Merino Light. And I want to cast that on and get it sort of started and in progress because I'm pretty sure that's going to be my travel knitting for Japan. So I think, is that it for my plans? Yeah, I think that's, Snow Wonder actually. Let me grab that. I'm thinking I might even do, even though like lots of comments, I'm so grateful. Most people actually said, do the Snow Wonder in a blue or a light blue or something icy or a white. And yet I still am thinking about it with this pink. I think what I might do, because I've already bought the pattern, I might swatch a little bit of the bobbles and with this yarn. I want to swatch this yarn anyway. I would like to see, even if I don't do it for Snow Wonder, I would like a nice warm woolly sweater in this pink colorway. This is Bichet Bouche Le Gros Lamb's wool, and that gauge, I'm thinking my gauge will be about 19 stitches over 4 inches. So that's going to be whenever I do make this will be a pretty quick knit. Yeah, so I think I might swatch for that just to try. I'd like to try out the bobbles anyway, even if I don't use this yarn. I want to gauge swatch just generally with this yarn, so I'll do a bit of stockinette, and then I'll do the bobbles to practice the bobbles and see what the bobbles are like with this yarn. The other thing that I might do is, because we are going to Japan in a few weeks, the store in Kyoto, Walnut, sells Brooklyn Tweed Shelter, which is the yarn that's recommended in the Snow Wonder pattern by Heidi Kiermaier. That's what I'm talking about. Sorry if I forgot to mention that. I think they don't have a huge amount of stock of yarn. I mean, it is winter over in Japan, so maybe things are moving pretty quickly. My local yarn store, Skein Sisters, sells the Brooklyn Tweed Shelter, but they don't have it in stock at the moment at all. So I'm not sure if they're going to stop carrying it or it's just been hard to get. But anyway, I'm thinking about that. But I feel like when I'm in Japan, if I'm there already and I've swatched it in this yarn and I know I'm okay with the bobbles, then I might feel confident to buy the Brooklyn Tweed Shelter yarn in like an icy blue color. And who knows, maybe I'll make a pink one as well if I really like it. So, you know, I don't mind the second knit. So I think at the very least, I'm going to swatch this yarn this week. Right, is there anything else? And I am still thinking about the Stovepipe sweater because I'm obsessed with that sweater. And I've written down I need 3 skeins of like about 650 meters of the base yarn, like a cream color, and then I think something like 73 grams of the other 5 colors. So that would be 5 single skeins. So 3 skeins of the base color and 5 single skeins of the color work ones to work with it. So yeah, so I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for that kind of yarn in Japan. So I'm just having a look down to see if there's anything else that I was thinking about. The only other thing, and normally I do this segment before, but what has caught my eye, I'm going to just throw it in now because I forgot to mention it earlier. What has caught my eye, just the one thing, I was watching those twins who knit, and they always knit such beautiful, usually sweaters and socks, and occasional hats. I think actually, was it Rachel who had made a Oslo hat actually, so that also inspired me as well. It's so funny though, because that was the thing, she'd knit it to, it had gone, I think she knit it to pattern, but when she put it on, it looked incredibly long. So anyway, I've put a message on their video to ask like just how long it was, because that's what I don't want either. I don't want it to like, I like the Oslo hat to be a little bit out, but not like out here. So it would be helpful to know like how long to knit it to, so that it doesn't look like it's you know, growing a tree out of your head. So that's one thing. So from there, I really liked the clay sweater that I think it was Rachel who was wearing, and by Ozetta. It looks really, really pretty. So that's caught my eye. I don't have any particular plans for yarn, but I just thought it was really pretty. So I'll put a picture of that sweater up there. So I think that might be it for, oh no, one more thing. I was going to swatch for the Oslo sweater, which I did. I swatched with the yarn that, where is it? This is the Purl Soho linen quill in the vintage Celadon, and I was going to have this with this for my half and half wrap, but I ended up deciding I like this one better, that combo better. Anyway, so I thought I'll use this with this Labia Name silk mohair and swatch for the Oslo sweater. And I really don't like these two together. I think that yarn is so stunning. And this is a really pretty yarn too. Each of these are really pretty individually, but when I swatch them together, they just look a bit dull, to be honest. Like, I don't know if you can see. So I was swatching for gauge, but I was also swatching for, you know, do I like how these two, especially with mohair, you really want to swatch those two together to make sure, do I like how it looks? Because you really don't know until you put it together. And I just think it's not horrible, but it's just a bit dull. And I think it doesn't really, neither of them sort of shine together, whereas I think each one of them individually is really lovely. So I think I'll go back to my original plan where this is going to be a ranunculus. This I don't know. Not sure. I've got 3 skeins of it. That's a substantial amount of yarn. So I'm just going to sit on that. I won't, like, you know, I don't have to decide anything. It will just go into stash and then I'll decide later. But this is going back into my plans for a ranunculus. Held double, because I have 2 balls of this, which is, they're each 500 meters. So if I hold it double, that's 500 meters. So that's more than enough for a ranunculus. But again, like, this is what I mean about repeat knits. I'm very happy to do a repeat knit, but I don't usually want to do it straight away. So I still plan to make the Oslo sweater, but I just don't have a yarn already picked out for it. And I'm not in a rush for it because it is summer here. So I'm definitely more on the tops rather than sweater plans. Like, I'm knitting the field sweater and I love how that's looking, and I wonder if I could have it finished for Japan. That would be so good. So, and that's the other reason why I suppose the Oslo hat is calling towards me. I do want to have a few things, and that's also why I'm not rushing to knit on those tops. Is it'll be nice to have them, but if I'm going to Japan in about 2 weeks and 3 days, I'm probably, my brain is more travel knitting, and is there anything that I want to finish? So that the Purl Soho ribbed hat, I want that finished for Japan. I mean, I think I'll finish it this week, but I'm also thinking, oh, maybe I could knit another. I mean, I have so many beanies around the house, but you know, maybe I could knit a beanie for the trip. And also, if that Oslo sweater, Oslo hat works well, if I like it, that would also be a really good portable knitting project. So, but I am spending a bit of time researching that, because a lot of people have talked about, like, there's the pattern doesn't tell you, it's one of her earlier patterns, I think. The pattern doesn't tell you to do a provisional cast on, you just do a regular cast on, and then when you do the folded brim, you pick up the stitches, and I'm like, there's no way I'm doing that. I'm definitely doing a provisional cast on so that I can unpick that. So it's worth, when I do this pretty much all the time. Before I start a project, I spend a lot of time looking at other people's notes, which is probably why I haven't cast on anything new this week. I've been really focused on finishing things up, and I don't want to start new things until I've done research, right? So like, I am ready to make the half and half wrap, because I've done so much research on what edging stitch I want, and what, you know, and I've done swatches, and so there are a few things that are moving towards being cast on because I've done enough preparation. But the Oslo hat I want to make, but now I need to spend a bit of time just, you know, whatever yarn I pick, do I have enough of it? You know, what techniques am I going to use? Like, definitely provisional cast on. And like when I saw Rachel's version from those twins who knit, I thought, oh, better make sure I don't make it too long, you know, just getting a bit prepared for beforehand. Right, so I think that might be it for the knitting. I'm just going to go get a drink and then I'll come back and do my personal stuff. So I'm going to get on to personal stuff. If you're leaving now, thank you so much for watching. If you can like and subscribe, that would be lovely, and I'll see you next week. Right, so my week just gone, went on a weekend away with my husband just for a couple of nights up the coast, and it was like about a 2-hour drive, so I've got a lot of knitting time in the car done and a lot of relaxing time there, knitting and reading, walking on the beach. It wasn't quite warm enough to go swimming, but it was nice just, it was just really nice being away, going out for dinner. That was really lovely. And speaking of reading, I finished Life Worth Living, and we had our last book club on that. That was really good. I've made heaps of heaps of underlining and writing in it, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I reckon at some point I'll go back and sort of read through my notes and yeah, like answer some more of the questions and things in there. So I really enjoyed that. The other thing, so I'm still reading Never Let Me Go, and I also found this book at my, because I'm a high school maths teacher, I can borrow books from the library there, and this is one that somebody recommended, Before the Coffee Gets Cold. It's by a Japanese author, and it's actually, they're both Japanese authors. This one's actually set in Japan, and I think it's one of 4. So I haven't even started this one, but I've grabbed this one. So I don't know when I'm actually going to have time to read over the next couple of weeks, because there's so much planning, I've got heaps of marking and stuff to do. My students just finished an exam, and I've got more students doing an exam on Monday. So I've got heaps to do. I finished my reports. But anyway, I've got books if I have some time to read. That's what that's what I'm going to be reading. Other things are just generally getting ready for Japan and planning like where we're going and what we plan to do. It's funny, we're staying in this hotel in Tokyo for one night, and my husband, he chose a place that's called the Under Railway Hotel. Apparently like it's meant to be super noisy, which I'm hoping will be fine. I have earplugs anyway, but I'm just excited about the adventure of it, and he's doing so much of the organising, which is really lovely. It will be nice for me to just go, right, where are we going today? The only thing I'm looking at is like, what yarn shops am I going to? Definitely going to go to Walnut in Kyoto, and if there's time, I'll go to Avril as well. Avril has a lot of novelty kind of yarn. I might have to have a bit of a think of what I could even use that for, because I don't want to come home with novelty yarn and there's no way I'm buying novelty yarn without a plan. Like I do know that I've seen people hold like one strand of something, sort of like a, something glittery or shiny, like a thin strand throughout a project that sort of add a bit of zhuzh. I could see myself doing that, obviously not an all over garment, but like one little strand that sort of adds a bit of interest. Yeah, anyway, so that's kind of coming up, or that's what's been happening this week. Last night my son had his year 10 formal, so there was like all photos out at the beach at Cronulla, and then taking him there and then picking him up. Meant to pick him up at 10, of course they didn't finish till 10:30, and then I picked up my daughter from the airport this morning. She got back from Bali this morning. But last night my son's got tonsillitis, so if you can hear him in the background, he went to his formal last night, and at 3 in the morning this morning he woke me up with like terrible pain, and so I found some antibiotics that we had in the house, and found him some Strepsils for his throat and Panadol, and it just got me thinking, I'm so grateful that we have, like, my son's in pain and I have medicine available, and I got him into the doctor this morning at no cost, right? That's like, Australian healthcare is amazing. So, and he straight away, yep, got tonsillitis, and yes, he needs to be on antibiotics. So I feel very fortunate that as a mum, when your child's in pain, you have medicine to give them, and we can afford it and it's available. So yeah, so anyway, if you can hear some background noise, that's him gaming at home. So he's definitely feeling a lot better. And yes, my daughter, I'll put I don't think she'll mind a couple of pictures of her in Bali. She had a great time. She's up in her room asleep, because I think she only got 2 hours sleep on the plane, because it was an overnighter. So that's kind of what's been happening in my week. Today's my day off, so it was, you know, pick her up from the airport and take my son to the doctor, record. But I like being able to have a day off that I can do these kinds of things. Yes, and then it will be back to teaching at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. I've only got 2 more weeks of school left and then the long break. So what's coming up for this week? Obviously I'm teaching early tomorrow. Saturday I'm teaching at the yarn shop in the morning. Meeting my friend Amy, I think either for lunch or a walk, going out to dinner with some friends in the evening, picking up my son from KFC at 11 o'clock on Saturday night. He should be better and right to go back to work by Saturday. So pretty busy Saturday. Sunday should be pretty quiet, just church in the morning and then some marking. Yeah, and then just getting everything wound up for the last couple of weeks. So yeah, I mean, I also need to prepare. I finished one topic with my Extension 2 students, and the next topic coming up is proof, and that's pretty meaty kind of topic. So I've got some more professional development videos to watch to make sure I'm completely ready to start teaching that new topic. So I have quite a lot of work to do. So I'm not sure how much knitting is going to get done over the next couple of weeks because there's just so much work and planning and preparation, which is probably another reason why I'm really glad that I didn't cast on anything new yet. Because you know, it's not like any of these things have to be finished. They're not, like, none of my knitting is to deadlines, but there is that pressure of like, oh, I've got that thing sitting there. So it's kind of nice not to have anything too much on the needles at the moment. And the few things that I do have, like that Purl Soho ribbed hat, will be finished soon. And hopefully it'll be really nice if I got the field sweater. I am going to have to, finish for Japan, I'm going to have to pack pretty light because we are going, like, we're staying at a lot of different places. There'll be a lot of moving around, and we also need to pack ski clothes. So yeah, like, I don't think I'll be, I won't be packing like 5 sweaters, right? I'll be packing a couple of sweaters. So I'm not sure if the field sweater is the best one. Like, probably my Ingles might be better because it's just a really easy throw on, and you know, fit over other things, sort of layering piece. Anyway, we'll see. It doesn't, obviously I have so many sweaters, I don't have to finish the field sweater, but it'd be nice to have it done before Japan. Right, I think that's probably it for the episode. I think this is getting long enough. I'm a little bit nervous about getting this all uploaded and working on the new phone. I'm sure it will work fine, but yes, fingers crossed. And yeah, I hope everyone has a great week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.